Good afternoon, everyone. In fact, a good late afternoon to some folks around the nation, but it's wonderful to have you here. My name's Kirk Cerny from Secure Passage, and today we're going to be talking about modern security operations. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about legacy versus modern security, data and intelligence as it relates to modern security, and the future of security operations. And we have an amazing panel that's with us. We're going to introduce ourselves in just a moment. But generally speaking, in today's world, security and operational data in our environments, it just pours in from every direction of our operations. Too often, though, the systems that we use to bring this data into one place, they don't talk well together. They don't play well together. They don't connect. The result is we have in our industry of physical security a lot of alert fatigue, missed threats, teams that are constantly stuck in a reaction mode. And the panel that we have today, and it is an exclusive one, it's a great one. We're going to explore how organizations can break down silos and move from a fragmented posture and even fragmented tools to something that is more unified, intelligent, and gives a better security posture for the type of organization. You're going to hear from industry experts who they revel in considering the real risks of disconnected infrastructure and how a unified and AI-driven platform bridges security, whether it's physical, cyber, operational systems, IoT, and really the power of turning raw data that we collect into business intelligence that drives effectiveness and resilience in our business. We're also going to discuss some real world applications in high stakes environments, things like healthcare, banking, et cetera. You're at Secure Passage today. We're coming to you from our Customer Experience Center in Kansas City, Missouri. We're on the Martin City side of town, which is a great community on the southeast side of Kansas City. The greater Kansas City area has been our home for over 30 years. Secure Passage is a security infrastructure and intelligence company that we built on a singular belief that technology should actually serve people in the use cases of security and not the other way around. In security, we often find ourselves chasing the technology. The technology should actually support what we do. It was founded by our cybersecurity pioneer, Gary Fish, who 25 years ago, started bringing together federal, state, and local agencies, as well as critical enterprise environments for the improvement of the overall security posture. So we don't just detect threats, but we spend time connecting the dots, bringing the clarity to chaos, we like to say, and helping you act before events spiral. We're in the government sector, government agencies that are critical to infrastructure protection. That's how we got our start, but also global enterprises, faith-based communities, schools. We basically help these organizations build safer, smarter, and more resilient operations. And so we're going to get into a beautiful panel today. I'm going to have the panel members introduce themselves one by one here. But today, Casey Rash, we have Lucas Ingala, we've got Major Scott Lang, we have Brian Inge with us. Gentlemen, take it away and tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you're bringing to the webinar today, and your organization as well. Casey, let's start with you here on the far left.
I'm Casey Rash. I'm a principal solutions engineer here at Secure Passage, typically involved in pre-sales activities and discussing needs, identifying risk and gaps, and helping find solutions and ways to solve for those opportunities of improvement. My history is just that of all the things the Marine Corps can do to a guy, it turned me into the nerd stuff. I was a signals intelligence guy for several years in cyber defense in the DoD. And after that, worked in network security across a couple different industries before I came over to partner side. And it's been a heck of a journey, learning a lot. And somebody messed up by getting me in this chair for this. So
it was the gentleman next to you, Lucas.
Especially curated group. My name is Lucas Ingala. I'm the founder, CEO of Watchmen Security Services. I do know my company. I've been doing this for, 14 years. Today's me and my wife's wedding anniversary. So,
congratulations.
and I know that because we started the business the same year we got married. So, and I remember our wedding anniversary too. But Yeah, so I got in this wild game and basically been serving customers and always been on the cutting edge of cloud-based technology and trying to bring all these disparate systems together and provide a holistic solution for our customers so they can get actionable insights and results that really matter. That's kind of our passion, and then to serve our customers well. So happy to be on the panel today, and thanks for putting me on here, Kirk.
Great to have you with us. Major Scott Lang, sir.
Yes, sir. Scott Lang. I'm with the Air National Guard. I've been serving our country for the last 25 years, primarily focusing on intelligence. So you can imagine what domain that would be in, it'd be all of them. But the last handful of years or so, I've been serving as a director of operations for the Cyber Safe Squadron out in Arkansas.
Pleasure to have you with us, and thank you for coming up from Arkansas today. Our furthest traveled was about a 6-hour drive up. And Brian.
Hello, my name is Brian Inge. I'm a channel account manager at Motorola Solutions. I'm based here locally in Kansas City. My role at Motorola is partner enablement. I work with partners in my territory to drive more of a solution-based atmosphere around ecosystem, right? Create the solutions with ecosystem and, radio, video, access, everything that we have to drive a customer-centric solution around eco.
Thank you very much for being with us as well. Gentlemen, this will be a fun panel. One of the things that we're experiencing in the security industry is, a lot of us have deep background on the cyber side. We know about logs and controls coming from the network, et cetera. But Secure Passage, we decided that the physical end of security needed to have a similar posture. We needed, as we did in cyber, to bring together controls that might be unrelated, may not speak exactly the same language, and make them give us a picture of what's happening in the network or happening within the organization's infrastructure. But on top of that, we know that there's usually a couple of security operations within organizations, governments, large organizations especially, might add surveillance on top of that, and executive protection and aviation on top of that. So it gets fairly complicated. But the physical side needs the exact treatment that we delivered to cyber 20 years ago. Because if we thought there were a lot of controls on the cyber side that needed to be correlated to build that picture, on the physical side, I would say it's 10x. So whether it's camera systems, access control, license plate readers, automatic vehicle locators, or any number of sensors, something as simple as that generator sensor that tells you whether or not it's cycling and up and down. How do you bring all this together to give your organization a picture of its security posture, but also the business resilience posture that you have for your organization? So one of the major challenges, and I mentioned that we were going to talk about legacy security versus modern security, is what, dear panelists, we find is disunity in security. It is a critical vulnerability. Attackers will carry out their craft regardless of silos, often using the security silos that we see in organizations to their advantage. So, panelists, what are your ideas or thoughts around strategies to remedy the whole thing about silos? And Lucas, I'm looking at you first. So as an integrator, you walk into a customer and you're talking with them about their security posture and how they operate. What are you seeing, and what are some of the challenges of those silos?
Yeah, so I mean, the weaknesses that you're going to encounter are the things that you think that basically you're not paying attention to, right? And a lot of that is because of what Kirk said. You're focused in one area, but a lot of times security threats come from another area. And so as it relates to physical security and, putting the technology out there in these businesses and these different facilities, you want to get eyes everywhere. I mean, as much as you can, but then you want these cameras that are sitting there to collect data, right? And then with that data, you can do a lot with it. So the biggest exposure that I see is just we get so focused in this vein of, well, let me get the cameras up, right? Or let me do door access. And that's going to solve something. And while it will, but just putting the stuff in doesn't actually solve anything. It's what's going to happen after it's in, what's it capturing, and then what do we do with all the information in the data? And that's where it starts getting interesting. That's where, like Kirk's saying, you can overlay different things, have different systems talk to each other, and really get a holistic approach of your entire property. That way you can remediate, you can detect, respond, and deter. and make sure that you're remediating any risk that comes up before it ever even happens. A lot of times what happens in our industry is you're going back and something happens. Great. You got the footage, you got video there. It's good. You can use that as evidence to prosecute somebody and go through that whole legal process. But the damage is already kind of done at that point, right? So what are we doing proactively to make sure that our sites and our these places that we have are actually hardened and we're actually preventing things from happening? That's really what we need to get to. And that's all the systems together talking together to come out with that desired outcome.
Thank you very much. You know, some of the systems that we work with, you know, a majority of them in present day, they seem to be systems that were built for a different era in physical security, designed primarily for that right of boom, you know, that deterrence piece or post-incident investigation, as you were mentioning. So many of the sensors that exist today didn't exist just a few years ago. How do you move from that legacy posture and that reactive approach to proactive automated security? And Major Scott Lang, I'm coming to you for that one.
All those legacy systems pretty much did exactly just that. It identified something right of boom after the incident. So theft deterrence, it was really just to identify who that was after it already happened. But the problem is that incident already occurred. So in the modernized space, the whole purpose is to try to identify what that intent is of the adversary trying to get in. So there's definitely a huge disconnect between how it used to be and how it is now. The systems are already in place. A lot of times there's a lot of sensors that are put in place as well. It's just, what are you doing with that data that's in there?
Yeah. The consideration of, you know, modern advancements, particularly AI, you know, enabled sensors, that kind of thing. I genuinely believe that, you know, this process whereby the data that those sensors provide, the automatic correlation and triage is a position that we need to get to, you know, a posture we need to get to, right? When it comes to the technologies that we're running, and Brian, I'm going to come to you for this one as well. Integration capabilities, you know, those kinds of things will help bring down the silos potentially. Rip and replace projects look like the most direct way to move from legacy to modern. But how, in your experience, do customers actually evolve this position? Because it's not often something where you just rip it all out and start anew in the process of addressing those silos and addressing the technology that might enable those silos.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's about evolving what infrastructure you currently have already, right? To stay away from the cost and the timely matter of rip and replace. I'm in sales. I would love to rip and replace all my deals, of course. But if we can leverage what we already have in place with AI and automation, I think that's a big driver of a shift in change. And that, I think, is important to consider. There are times where you do need to replace gear, equipment, outdated hardware, let's say, software updates. But I think leveraging what you have and kind of shifting that mindset of, hey, you know, we don't have to think of security as a cost center, right? Let's look at it as, let's leverage what we have and layer some additional technology to help enhance that.
Excellent. Again, legacy to a modern posture. When you're talking about legacy security, you have to address alert fatigue. And Casey, you and I constantly talk about recognizing that as an operational security problem, right? This disassociation that operators have looking at what they're supposed to see is 100 different camera feeds at one time and pick something out of that, right? We talk about how it's a very familiar problem. It's something that our friends in cybersecurity, we've seen this, you know, throughout decades, right? But Casey, you know, in particular, when we're talking about disparate siloed systems with a flood of data, a lot of it that's non-critical. It's good logs, good data to have in your environment. What are some, from your perspective, the real world costs if we don't address security operators being too overwhelmed by what they're seeing in their ecosystem?
You said real world costs?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is it's probably a spectrum. Real world cost, um, at the worst, death, somebody dies. That's a big miss. And there are various things in between there. I think it's important for us to get around the idea that we're in a paradigm shift in security right now. There are many things changing, and a lot of that is the capabilities of technology, but also the threat landscape is different now than it was even just a few years ago. We're all well aware of that right now. And that's a really good example of what's the cost.
Yeah. I think some of the additional costs that come from legacy environments is that you don't have the ability to pivot very easily. In particular, we talk about protecting assets, people, places, and things, but then also layering on other data and, frankly, intelligence, which takes us to kind of the next section of our webinar. If you don't have threat intelligence about how particular things, external incidents that are unplanned, events that are planned, might affect an asset, if you don't have that color or that visibility, there's a really good chance that intelligence that is going to affect that asset will adversely affect that asset, and you've missed a grand opportunity to protect your remit, right? So in data and intelligence in particular now, we're talking about an evolution where you see a ton of different sensors that weren't in the environment before. But and that can be every security sensor, whether it's a camera or a drone or, like we say, access control. But you're also starting to see environments where they want to bring in operational technology, like in manufacturing, for example, or they want to have their IoT pinned down to make sure that there isn't a bad actor coming in one of those doors that is both kind of cyber and physical. So these things can be big time alert generators, right? What do you all think about bringing this kind of data into a central location like we did in cybersecurity? We, came up with, or at least Anton Chavakin did, the security incident and event management platforms. On the physical security side, do you see legs for something that might be that centralized collector of data from physical security tools? Lucas, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, our industry, physical security by nature is just old. It's just old. I don't know how else to say it. You go to these trade shows and we're 10 years behind everything, right? So I think as we start, any sensor that's out there collecting information, right? The businesses are going to be able to do something with that, to your point. It's an aggregated point that they can collect this camera, let's say a manufacturing warehousing scenario, right? If I'm an operator of a manufacturing warehouse scenario, I of course want to know my risk. I want to know security, what's going to happen, protect, detect, deter. I want to know all that stuff. But at the same time, I kind of want to know if there's slip and falls. I want to know if there's water on the ground. I want to know how fast the forklifts are running around on the floor. There's a lot of insurance things that I'm going to be aware of. I want to know, okay, do my workers have PPE on? All these things that are really, sure, I get a physical security aspect to it, but every sensor that goes in there is the way I see it in the future. Everything that we put into your businesses are going to be literally, it's an information portal to collect that data and do something with it that applies to your business operation. Okay. So sure, you're going to have the base layer security. What are we going to do when an incident happens? But there's also going to be additional value drivers for your business that these things that we're putting in these cameras and different devices we're putting in your business, they're going to collect information. You're going to be able to do something with that. It's going to de-risk a lot of different things. So to your point, I mean, I think it's an aggregated thing. It's not just going to be siloed to security. I think we're going to see a lot of different information, a lot of different action points that we can do out of the things that we're putting in these businesses.
Thank you, Lucas. Casey, that kind of highlights the need for intelligent and correlated detections, doesn't it?
I think it does.
Thank you for your answer.
Going back to the question you asked Max, are we still referencing that?
Sure.
Can you repeat the question, please?
That I asked Lucas.
Lucas, I'm sorry.
So we were talking about every security sensor. So from surveillance to drones to cameras, license plate readers, all these things, right? We have to correlate them. That seems logical. But it also then within an ecosystem, you've got operational technology potentially, you've got IoT that's just, these are major alert generators. So
Yeah.
what we were talking about, bring down that noise, intelligent correlated detections might make sense for physical like it did for cyber.
It absolutely makes sense. It's a natural process, a natural thing that's going to happen, that is happening with Truman. I just want to make sure people understand we're not talking about cybersecurity for these things. We're talking about adopting practices of cybersecurity to handle the data.
Right.
So what information are all of these various sensors putting out that we're not leveraging for any sort of purpose at all? It's just a camera that can see things that requires someone else to look at it and react. Whereas most cameras produced since about 2015, you guys might know better than me, probably have some degree of capability for some kind of analytics or edge compute. Well, that's data, and most of the time, a lot of the time, these systems aren't even configured to give you the data that's important to you, or even like an NTP setting. Because if we're talking about correlating data events for the purposes of detection and response, matching timestamps is very critical. This is stuff that we stubbed our toes on in managed SIM and SOC things in the past, where there's so much about what's happening with Truman and Secure Passage that is just nearly, it's almost the same conversation every time I turn around. It's all the things that have already been traversed in cybersecurity. We're dropping into physical security to make security teams faster, more accurate, more efficient, and in the end have more confidence in their ability to respond accurately. And that's, that goes back to the first question you asked me, real world. What are we trying to do here? I'm not here at Secure Passage because I believe in SaaS as a thing. It's because I have kids in school and I do things with my family, and I want to know that places are safe and secure.
Yep. With respect to that legacy versus modern posture, I think what we're coming to a conclusion is we can treat physical like we did cyber 20 years ago. It is important for us to bring down the noise, serve up to security practitioners, whether they're in a security operations center, emergency operations center, or out in the field, serve up to them what is of high risk, critical risk, maybe moderate risk as well. But there's a lot happening within environments where we're providing security and we're getting logs that come off of tools that are purely informational or purely, low risk, right? They really don't need to be noise that is sent into the SOC for someone to triage, because nothing really needs to be triaged. It's informational, right? But just as in cybersecurity, where we enabled SOC operators to see the most important stuff, we're now tackling that with Truman in the physical space. So Secure Passage is leading in that direction. Brian, so typically we're talking about security tools doing their security job. But, business intelligence these days, it used to be the domain of, sales uses business intelligence to manage what we're doing in the field and the KPIs related to sales, marketing, finance. These are the things where you could apply business intelligence. We believe that security is also evolving into business intelligence. Do you have any examples of maybe business insights that have been unlocked when you're talking with somebody about selling them a security control and they suddenly a light bulb goes on and goes, it could potentially help us with other metrics of our business? Any examples like that?
Yes. I've seen several cases where the data collected from our sensors, the analytics, video, for instance, right? Video, you have analytics on customer patterns and behavior. So now you are collaging a roadmap of where to put product, right? Where to move product to, if you're in retail, let's say. gas stations, right? Also, access control. You can look at the data collected from access control, looking at bottlenecks, semis coming in. There's a backup. There's data there that correlates back to, hey, this is a productivity issue. This time is money. This needs to be fixed. So you can see that with, analytics today, but it's using AI and automation to actually gather that data. I think that's where we layer on some additional technologies like what we offer and, correlate that, create a playbook and go after it.
Great insight. With respect to conversations that we've been having that have been, similar. Oftentimes, security, of course, is seen as a cost center. Cost centers don't make CEOs happy. But every now and again, you'll run across somebody in the C-suite that's talking about security and, should we collapse security? Hey, cyber and physical, you both have security in your title. Should it be one thing? As they start to consider those sorts of things, they start asking a question, can we use these tools that we're investing in for security for other operations, some which might even result in revenue generation? So we're seeing security tools applied to occupational safety. Lucas mentioned slip and fall, I think. It can be applied to environmental safety. The halo sensors that are a Motorola product, they detect, noxious gases, vape, THC, things of this nature, but also spoken word, gunshot, aggression. That becomes an environmental piece that not only supports the security remit, but your HR department, compliance wants to know about that. Some outfits have surveillance as well. It starts to serve their needs too. So a practitioner can go to their fellow partners, hopefully, in some of these departments and say, hey, we have a cost to share with you, right? Then you take it even further, Brian, as you were saying, you can start to roll this into marketing as well. So business intelligence and this business data, security data becomes that. And then can be an argument that can be used, obviously, when you're going for budget, when you're trying to establish a new program, when you're trying to move to modern platforms versus where you've been in legacy posture. Finally, then, we are seeing that the digital and cyber, threats, the difference between them, it's blurring at kind of an exponential rate. I used to say in counterintelligence, for example, when you tried to pick out impossible travel, like somebody logging in, Rod, you log in here in Kansas City, but you also log in simultaneously or 5 minutes later from North Carolina. Well, it might be he's running a VPN in a coffee shop down there and it logged in up here, but it was impossible for him to travel from here to there in 5 minutes, right? Physical security is far better at zeroing in on that use case, for example. Major Lang, in particular, when we're talking about, the environments that we have to secure, we know that some of these sensors that are OT, IoT, et cetera, they can give us a lot of great information. Like, for example, in that impossible travel, we know full well that Kirk badged in here. His MAC address of his phone was picked up when he arrived, as well as his license plate was read as he came on premise. There are at least 3 indicators before he ever tries to log on to the network that he's here, rather than potentially from the network data pinging from North Carolina. From your experience, particularly, with cyber and then the physical elements of that, how do you see the safety or the relative insecurity of some of these new sensors being applied to a security remit as well, operational technology or IoT?
Sure. So just to kind of get to where we're at right here in the conversation, first off, when Casey was talking about alert fatigue, that absolutely is a thing. And if you're not experiencing alert fatigue, I'm going to say you probably fall under 1 to 2 categories. Either you're naive and not prepared, or you're not that valuable. And we all want to think that what we are doing is so valuable. So that's definitely not the case. So we have to be absolutely prepared. So if you're not receiving those alerts, On the physical side, are your operators paying enough attention? On the network side, is your IDS or IPS not configured correctly or tuned properly so you're not getting all of those alerts? When it comes to sunk costs, like you were referring to earlier, a lot of the cost in the industry has already been spent. Hardware, just because it's legacy, doesn't mean it's not valuable anymore.
Right.
What you have to do is have a vendor agnostic tool that can use that data that pulls in those legacy systems to make it valuable. Whether it's, OT, IoT, it doesn't really matter. IoT, life is becoming so much more connected, and it's making life more enjoyable, more flexible, but also introduces that vulnerability. Same exact thing with OT. IT may affect networks, but OT affects livelihood.
Mm-hmm. So having visibility into it or converging these things seems to be a logical thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about legacy, moving to a modern security posture, a little bit about the data, maybe that's coming off of different tools, et cetera, and how you turn information into intelligence. But then let's talk about the future of security operations, and in particular, to all of you. I'm going to start obviously with Casey, and we'll just move down the line. What is your response or reaction to this particular statement? A truly modern security posture is a shared responsibility, not just an IT or security function. Expound on that, will you, Casey?
That's a great statement. I believe it's true. And it goes back to, if we want to use the keyword silos, there are technology silos, there are team silos, and all of that is ultimately a reflection of our executive leadership silos in various titles. Not that that's bad or wrong, but it just creates a situation where cyber and physical exist in their own vacuums typically. And there are a lot of practices that can be shared and learned from across the two. So that's one thing that I think would serve us well to address just full spectrum security, a viewpoint of that, where yes, my role is this, but it's good for me to understand the other side of the security table. Is that addressing the question?
I think it is, because, as I go to Lucas, as you walk into customers, et cetera, besides IoT and security, who are part of the security conversations on the physical side?
Yeah, so that depends on who we're talking to. Most of the time could be HR,
Mm-hmm.
could be in there depending on what we're talking about. Could be a lot of times it's IT. Sometimes it's building maintenance engineer people. There's typically one person making that decision. But it typically gets delegated down most of the time. And it's typically in a department, and that department owns it. It's when we start deploying things is when the collaboration really needs to start, right? Because IT might make a decision, but then once things start coming online, it starts affecting a lot of different people. And I've found that it kind of fizzles out, right? You make the decision up here. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. We get everything in. IT's all gun ho because we got it in, and we get all that done. But then as time goes on, teams don't. We have to do a lot of follow up to make sure everyone's still engaged in what we just sold them, essentially.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, Major Lang. Conversation now from your perspective about cross-departmental collaboration. So, we know there's maybe a few more players than the typical network or security people that we expect. How do we ease into more collaboration with partners that typically haven't been part of the security conversation?
That goes back to the question that you're talking with Casey about. First of all, the adversary does not follow an org chart.
There we go.
Regardless of what business sector you belong to, what part of the organization you belong to, the adversary doesn't care. So though we may be operating in silos, we have to collaborate amongst each other. The solution is not building firewalls. The solution is not making those walls bigger and stronger. The solution is using those walls that already exist with the cameras and with the sensors and working together to actually paint a holistic picture.
Got you. And Brian, from your perspective then, as you see across the customer landscape, this is the trend that you're observing as well?
Yeah, I agree with everybody up here. I think that at least what I see is organizations that are just having security handled by IT, you're already vulnerable, right? So, you know, it is across all departments from everybody from the ground up at an organization. I think leaders need to make sure that they are putting the accountability on all departments to really have a secure environment.
Excellent. Gentlemen.
Just to add to that, Kirk, I think at the beginning of these decisions, it's really, if you can, get everybody to the table. Because each department, every head has a perspective on how this would benefit them.
Yeah.
So it's good to do that in the beginning.
You know, one of the things that we've seen as a good talk track as we're introducing people to a modern posture is think about your colleagues that have some form of remit around security. So yes, HR is going to be part of the conversation, because if your security tools, for example, are giving you evidence on the behavior of an employee, for example, that should roll into a case or roll into a file, ultimately, you know, will be adjudicated with some sort of discipline or termination, right? They're in the mix. One of the things, you know, in terms of the use cases like face badge mismatch, impossible travel, aggressive individuals, et cetera, that we're starting to see more people really tune into from is the compliance department. In fact, compliance is becoming far more interested in the security tools because the compliance can actually measure some things with the data that we're collecting in our environment. So the future of security operations is without question a team sport that, you know, we found was difficult on the cyber side. It may even be more difficult on the physical side, but it's really important for us all as practitioners, whether you're here in this room at HQ or out virtually, to evangelize that the silos should be broken down. Finally, here as we roll into a last question, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. This is just more operational. Your security industry these days, we see a high rate of burnout. We see, you know, folks perhaps from law enforcement, from agencies, et cetera, they're coming out of their career already burnt out, where it was usually they come out of their career and they're looking for a corporate security job or something of that nature, right? So the rate of burnout is high. We're experiencing a talent shortage again, right? There's always more security jobs than there are people that want to do it. We assume leveraging modern solutions and automations is one way to empower existing teams. How can AI and automation help security professionals focus on high-level, proactive tasks rather than being burdened in kind of the manual processes that we've seen forever? And I'll start with Brian and work my way back up the row. Go, Brian.
I believe that, you know, if you have manual processes in place and it's all reactionary and you're looking at, you know, looking at more than just focusing on less and the right alerts to be watched, you know, you're burning out your best, you know, talent, right? I mean, you're bringing in some really good talent to do this and they're burning out, right? So using AI and automation, giving them a focus of attention on the alerts that need to be funneled up is what's going to be enhanced with leveraging AI. And that's what I believe.
Thank you, Brian. Major Lang, automation helping the remit for security.
So when it comes to defending your boundary, whether it's physical or digital, it's incredibly important, right? You got your defended area that you're going after. Burnout is absolutely a thing. And what AI can do is we need to allow AI to do what it was created for. So that way those who are getting burnt out are allowed to do what they were created for. AI is a great tool to sift through large amounts of data, to correlate things, to contextualize things, and to put all this information into something usable. which will allow then to repurpose the time that's spent doing all these very manual processes. You talked about triage earlier and how triage is not something that we do very often. Triage is still a very complicated, complex, and very manual process. So if you allow AI to take a lot of those really complex, large data sets that would take human, a tremendous amount of hours to be able to sift through, you're now allowing that analyst, that individual, to focus on the things that they were created to do to begin with, whether that's transformational leadership, executive decision making, and things along those lines to help with that burden that AI can absolutely do.
Wonderful. Lucas, it seems that this is starting to frame how human capabilities can be augmented to address major challenges.
Yeah, I think you need to replace burnout with engagement. So, look at today's age, right? You get 1,000+ images just flickering in your eyes. You go to Facebook and like this, or Instagram or whatever, and we're constantly getting a tons of information sent to us. So as it relates to AI, it's just filter out the things that don't matter and give you the things that do matter, and you'll be more engaged. And because you're going to be more engaged, you're going to be more responsive, and you're not going to be burnt out, and you're going to be in the game, right? What happens is when you're overloaded with information, you get burnt out because you start to desensitize, you shut down some, and then you're not as sharp. So that's the way to do it. Replace burnout with engagement. Use AI to give people the engaging things that they need to respond to, and then you'll get people fired up about life and job, and we'll go buck them people.
Yeah. Casey, do you agree?
I do. I agree.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Any more about that?
I
Casey?
think that ultimately what we're trying to achieve is to be as close to left of bang as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Stealing that from you. I heard you say right of bang earlier. I love that phrase. We hope right of bang doesn't happen, but it will. Something's going to happen that catches you off guard. We want to know as much about that before it happens. Maybe we can't get it left of, maybe we can't get left of bang, but we need to be as close as possible. That's not going to happen without data and AI and automation. Like Scott said a minute ago, attackers don't care what their vectors are. They're using AI and automation against us. We have to learn how to adopt these technologies and implement them in a good way that makes sense for specific use. That's one thing I've learned too in this journey is you can use AI and automations for large generalized purposes, but we have the ability to be very specific, and that's when it gets really powerful.
Right. In this era, and one thing that Secure Passage we love to tackle is this idea of physical detection and response. Just like on the cyber side, we had like endpoint detection and response and managed detection and response, and then a variety of controls, detection and response. It needed to be done on the physical side. It needed to be brought together for the very purpose of not contributing to the disassociation that individuals who are the analysts or the operators feel by the additional security information that might be presented in front of them. And we're only inches away, my friends, from being in a position where converged security will become more of a real thing, where a chief information security officer is working shoulder to shoulder with a chief security officer. So you got the digital and the physical all under one umbrella. And in fact, my CISO mentor, Leon, I hope you're out there, he literally had the CEO of the company and his publicly traded outfit as well, not a shabby joint, walk into his office and say, hey, congratulations, you are now in charge of physical security as well. My mentor called me for some mentoring, and I said, the reason why you got that is because you've been conducting these physical pen tests. They thought you were great at it. But the world in security is collapsing between digital and physical. But we as practitioners have to do step one first, right, Austin? We need to correlate all of our physical stuff in order to make it useful like we did on the cyber side. So we're going to get some parting shots from the panelists. Just as a recap, Casey, an operator, He's been a consultant, solutions engineer, et cetera. Lucas he and his company are going up the ladders, putting up those solutions, but then also it's more than just the physical pieces. Watchmen will work on a variety of security remits for your company. So coming from that integrator's perspective, another operator in Major Scott Lang, as well as then Brian seeing a variety of technologies at his fingertips. Let's get some parting shots. We've talked about the future of security and that evolution from legacy to modern. But is there any final wisdom that you would give security practitioners today, particularly as they're facing the challenge of, oh, the CEO just said I'm in charge of physical as well, or if he doesn't say it now, it's going to happen in the future? What does it look like, and what advice do you give to security practitioners? Casey, we're starting on your end and working our way down the panel.
You start with me. I don't
Start
have
with you
anybody to
again.
follow.
There you are.
I think if I was told you're in charge of physical security today, the first question I'm going to ask is, what are we doing with the data?
There we go.
And the answer is probably, what data? That's just where we're at right now. Next to that, obviously, are technology concerns. You need to know a bit about your environment. Are we compliant to the things we're supposed to be compliant to? Are we actually seeing the things we need to see? Are they working the way they're supposed to work? But gone are the days of, well, we got a camera, we can see stuff now, good to go. That's just not how it's going to work now. We have to adopt the data and make it useful to us and intelligent.
There we go. Use the data available to you. Lucas.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely do that. But the other thing is just, I think if you be collaborative, right? In our industry, there's like 10 million different products.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really got to get a trusted team around you, evaluate things, ask the desired, figure out the desired outcomes, scrape it against a bunch of different iterations, really take time to dig into it and understand what it's going to do for you, right? Spend time on that. And then, to your point, just all the data that's going to come out of that, and then how you can enhance it and then make it even better. So if you get in that seat and you're in that spot, I would just say, take time, get a trusted partner that can kind of walk you through that and make sure you're getting some different opinions and you're getting the desired outcomes that you're looking for.
We're treading new ground, aren't we?
Yes.
In a big way.
Yeah.
Major Lang.
I would have to say that security is not a tool. It's a mindset, and it is everybody's responsibility, whether that's inside your organization or outside of your organization. And the mindset that I like to attack any of these problems, whether it's physical security or cybersecurity, is already making the assumption that those who want to be inside your network or those who want to be inside your physical boundaries are already there. And how can you collaborate? What tools can you use? What mindset do you need to be prepared for to be able to prove that wrong?
Thank you, sir, very much. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, not to be redundant, but I feel like the collaboration, interdepartmental collaboration on what's in place now, what needs to be improved, needs to be everybody's collective response.
Thank you very much. How about from the audience? Are there any questions that you have for panelists today? So we got a microphone coming over to Mr. Negley right now. Yes, sir.
So a question for you, Major Lang. I was curious about, with obviously your cyber defense, what about critical infrastructure? I think about waterways, our grid, you think about Chinese spy balloons, what your life, how much is that with the physical critical infrastructure versus cyber? I'm assuming it's both.
A lot, and it's getting more and more that way, to be honest with you. When it comes to security, I can say, if you get everything right, nothing else matters. If you get everything wrong, nothing else matters. When it comes to OT, critical infrastructure, the vulnerabilities that's associated with that, that's increasingly more becoming a target of our adversaries because it affects our way of life. imagine shutting down a waterway, a water treatment facility, the McClellan waterway, locks and dam system, energy sector, financial sector. Not only does it lose revenue, but it causes chaos as well. So the vulnerability is definitely there, but when I look at national security and protecting the people that live to my left and live to my right at my house, that OT and that critical infrastructure is something that we see more and more every single day.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question. Anything further? If seeing none, we're going to start. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Questions for you, Brian and Lucas. You had talked about breaking down silos between multiple organizations, right? And I think what we've seen is the cost center that security is typically sat in is now flipping to where it could be more of a revenue generating asset as well with the cameras and sensors. Can you tell us a little bit more about moving outside the IT and moving to more of a CRO and an executive around the customer experience and what that's providing in the industry right now at our customers?
Go. Yeah, so a good example of that would be like at retail, right? So a lot of times they want to know their throughput. So how many people come to the store? Where do they go? What do they buy? Right? How long are they hanging out at an end cap? And then do they stage the end cap appropriately? So they're talking about throughput in quick serve restaurants. The other thing is throughput. How many cars are coming through? How long are they waiting in line? You know, are the checks going out that line up with the food orders? All that kind of stuff is data that these operators are getting to really help drive revenue and using the camera systems for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate everyone's questions. And Brian, you good?
I was going to say, I see slip and falls, or I hear slip and falls a lot throughout the industry. Various verticals is a big CFO conversation, right? You know, we don't have money to add technology, whether it's AI or automation or physical new hardware. You know, you ask, hey, how much does a slip and fall cost you, right? How many do you have a month? And then it's a done deal. I think looking at hazard at the workspace or at a retail or at a mall or in a hospital, slip and fall seem to be a predominant one that I see.
And it's a perfect example of how an AI agent, you know, something very light that does a specific job to detect a slip and fall or to detect a puddle, you know, on the service bay floor, something of that nature. This will be in security continued as a human-led endeavor, but the machines are really going to drive it. The machines will give us the ability to suss out detail and create insights for us that the humans just can't keep up with, right? We're great and amazing quantum creatures, but we can't do absolutely everything or collect everything. But the machines can certainly help us do that. And AI leans right into, again, occupational safety, environmental safety, even marketing use cases, you know. So it's amazing how this posture and this power can help you and your organization. I mentioned Gary Fish, our founder of this company and several others in cyber and physical security. This future of unified security is really the next step in Gary Fish's legacy. It embodies the same things that we've always tried to do in security, be great integrators of all kinds of different products and services, and be innovating constantly about you know, the security use cases we can serve, but in particular, how we can help human operators actually do their job with things like wide-scale events, huge corporations, whether they be national, global, but bring it down to mid-size too. Everyone has a physical security problem today. And again, it's often a limited audience of people that are serving it, or it's traditionally just been a very small department, or it's been oriented toward guards, guns, and fences, which, believe it or not, many of which are digital these days. Wait until we get Optimus robots. Kyle, you're going to love those. But guards, guns, and fences are becoming increasingly digital as well. But by combining the strength of those legacy, approaches that we've taken in technologies, and then that power of AI and machine learning, we are going to get to a more comprehensive posture here at Secure Passage with Watchmen, with Strike, and our partners in government with Motorola to create what will be the future of protecting organizations from emerging threats. We're grateful that you joined us today for the webinar. We are at the top of the hour. I do want to express again to Bryce, to Don, to Austin, to Barry, to the team here, Kelly, that made all of this possible today, and certainly our guests that have joined us at the Secure Passage headquarters here in Kansas City. We're grateful. And to all of you online, thank you for spending time with us and talking about what will be a continued conversation about the convergence of physical and digital, but in particular, getting physical security to a point where we can understand, know, and trust our data such that it serves our human protectors in an extremely valuable way. From the Secure Passage headquarters here in Kansas City, we're signing off. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're grateful to all of you, and be safe.